Hello, thanks for joining me today. I'm Jessica Reynolds, the Georgia Curriculum Specialist with Classworks. I am so excited to be here with you today, and I'm equally excited to dive into designing an equitable MTSS process, and of course, looking at how Classworks can support these efforts. As I discuss MTSS, and its equitable characteristics, it's important to note that the work of MTSS is never done. Think about how each school year brings about new successes and obstacles, which cause constant adjustments to ensure a productive school year. Similarly, your MTSS process adjusts because we know the core of MTSS is to meet students where they are and with what they need, and that changes to morph as students' needs change. Dr. Melinda Michener offers an example of MTSS as an organizing system like a library. In the public library, you can know and learn where things are, many books by many authors on various topics intended for many audiences. Everyone has access to what they need, which can be different things at different times. Strategic decision-making occurs around book choices and pages read based on information about the purpose, reading level, and other data. Importantly, everyone is welcome to use the library system, where each person can check out the right book at the right time. In this imagery, the shelves represent an overall MTSS framework. Books represent the components of the system, and the pages in the books represent practices, strategies, and research-based interventions, from among which they can select based on the data that they gather. Think about this analogy. Every student can learn, just not on the same day, in the same way. Here at Classworks, we wholeheartedly embrace this concept. Additionally, our company values culture and interactions at all times that fully embrace the ideas of diversity, inclusion, empathy, and equity. After all, the overarching goal of Classworks product is to close learning gaps and make sure every student has access to high-quality learning that meets those specific needs. So what is equity? Equity is about opportunity, access, resource allocation, and culture. Equity in education means that every student is invited, welcomed, and given a sense of belonging in a system of teaching and learning. This system is fluid, responsive, and dynamic. It also uses all available resources to meet the needs of every student. Let's look at the 4 tenets of equity and how to apply them in the learning system. So what does equity look like in an educational setting? First, opportunity. This is referring to each and every student in a community. Can all students, regardless of their race, ability, or disability, culture, behavior, or social economic status, be present in the whole school environment? This also means that families have a voice in their children's education with meaningful and relevant dialogues. Second, is it inviting to all? Here we are referring to equity in terms of voice and access. Equitable access means that all necessary resources and support for students are readily available for all educators. Third, responsive and dynamic. This means we have an equitable allocation of resources to meet the needs of all students. This isn't to go over supplanting with title funds. This is simply answering the question, does every student have access to all available resources based on their needs? And finally, equity in education means it is welcoming and every student has a sense of belonging. There is a direct focus on understanding race, culture, class, needs, personalities, and how they mix together to create a community. To circle back to our library analogy, access to the library is best linked to the equity that is at the heart of MTSS. So now that we've defined equity in education, let's define MTSS. A multi-tiered system of support is a systematic, continuous improvement framework in which data-based problem solving, and decision making is practiced along all levels of the educational system for supporting students. Remember, like the library. So let's do a short history of how MTSS came to pass. Struggling students in school, especially reading, were referred to special education by their teacher, typically in third grade or later. Unfortunately, as we all know, there could be a myriad of reasons for a student struggling in school and struggling to learn to read. Being behind in school and needing intervention doesn't necessarily mean students had an inability to learn or qualified as EC students. From that realization, a tiered intervention process was developed. While in the intervention process, students are simultaneously being serviced with proven interventions to catch them up, but also being monitored to determine if there is something else that is inhibiting a student's ability to learn, such as a specific learning disability. Essentially, MTSS gets students the help they need earlier in their academic journey, rather than allowing students to become instructional casualties. MTSS includes screening, strong Tier 1 curriculum, interventions, progress monitoring, PBIS, and SEL, and Classworks offers all of these core components. Now that we've defined both equity and MTSS, let's explore what it means to have equity-based MTSS. Equity-based MTSS ensures that all students have equitable access to resources and opportunities. The school environment supports all students by recognizing the strengths and needs of individual students and ensuring those strengths and needs are being addressed. Families are acknowledged as a part of the school community and have a sense of belonging in their school. MTSS is an organizing framework that uses specific data sources to inform decisions that are coordinating diverse academic, behavioral, and social resources to meet the needs of each student. An MTSS framework with a goal to advance equity gives all students access to a great education in the most inclusive environment as possible. Questions to consider when ensuring equity in your MTSS framework. Are there academic achievement gaps between groups of students? Which groups of students are attending school less than others? Do we see overrepresentation of any groups of students in our behavior or academic data? Which groups of students are reporting few, if any, social emotional strengths? And fifth, what are students thinking and how are they thinking and feeling about equity and inclusion in their school? Classworks Insight data can help you parse out this information at a glance. You can see academic disparities, if any, among your subpopulations, and you can also see the same data from the SC Competency Survey. You are implementing MTSS to help ensure all students in your learning community are receiving all the support that they need to be successful learners. You want to build a system that is strong and does not fall prey to the winds of educational initiatives. You want your team to be invested and have the time to focus on strength, stability, and sustainability. Now think, you are in the library, but there are so many books to choose from. It can be overwhelming to decide on a book. Ask yourself, what important information am I hoping to obtain from the book, and what's the best way to use this information? This is very similar to implementing your MTSS process. Equity implementation starts with knowing your student groups, knowing the needs of those student groups, identifying how student groups and individual students in the group are performing. Many schools and districts use solutions like Classworks to lighten the load of teachers and administrators. Since Classworks is an online tiered intervention solution that combines assessment, instruction, progress monitoring, and a powerful reporting in one easy-to-use platform, it serves as a true asset to your MTSS framework. Here we have what's coined the Classworks Week. We believe in consistency and continuity. On Monday, your students will take their progress monitoring probe or probes. The start of the week is also a great time for your students to create an SEL goal. Tuesdays and Wednesdays are great days for students to work longer in their IOPs. Thursdays and Fridays, students could work in their ILP and check in for a quick conference with the teacher and circle back to their goal tracker. Okay, we're done, right? Well, unfortunately, no. A super important aspect of MTSS is continually improving your framework and your processes. For example, this list from Swift Education Center represents which aspects of MTSS districts are looking to improve on a continual basis. Screener for social and emotional needs, additional support, universal instruction practices and frameworks, vetted resources, and schedule vertical teaching time. And from our experience, we're hearing these same areas of concern from our partner districts. As we mentioned, we include an SE survey now in the program. We have both observations and SMART goals that can help students work in both organization and self-regulation. So, as we look to continually improve our processes and practice, we must also ask ourselves, how do we practice equity ourselves? I've discussed MTSS and its distinct nature. I also touched on the importance of this practice being equitable. But how do you make an equitable MTSS framework a reality in your schools? The first step requires an examination of sometimes long-held practices and beliefs about who can, who should, and will succeed in school. This can be a vulnerable and difficult task for all of us. However, it is essential for an equity-based MTSS framework. Thank you so much for joining us today. I hope you found today's discussion meaningful. And as always, please share the great things that you are doing to build an equity-based MTSS framework. We look forward to hearing your new ideas and things that we may not have covered today. We appreciate you. Thanks.